Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran, and you know that when Ukrainian Special Forces drop a helmet cam video, I am here to follow to break it down for you. Let's get into it. So this is, of course, coming to us from the boys at War Leaks, from the actual unit themselves, and I believe this is a Ukrainian National Guard unit. But bear in mind, in the US, we think of the National Guard as kind of being the B team stereotypically, which is actually not always the case. I think they're either way worse than active duty units or way better. I've never seen one that's actually like even with active duty. But this is Ukrainian Special Forces dominate Russian unit trapped inside building in Donetsk. Let's break it down. Let's see what we're watching here. Okay, first and foremost, what we've got is a helmet cam of a river crossing. So this is sort of sick. This is actually something that is a pretty basic soldier skill. That involves crossing a river with a small team. So you notice when a team is that small, it doesn't have to be a pontoon bridge, but what it does have to be is a rope across that bridge that's not going to dip you into the water. You can see here they have an inflatable raft, and the reason is because the alternative is having someone swim across. And you don't want to have someone swim across because one, they get totally soaked. And if you are on a, say, 48-hour operation, even in a relatively cool summer night, right, it can still get really cold really quickly, and that soldier is at risk of hypothermia. Also, of course, if you've ever had your boots get wet, you know that it will just totally destroy the skin on your feet, increase the risks of you getting a serious infection or injury like trench foot. So you want to avoid that if at all possible. And of course, you don't want to make one of your battle buddies take off all of their armor, all of their weapons, strip down to their skivvies and go swimming, especially when there's no security on the far side of that river. So really, if you have this boat, it's at least a slightly better option. At least the poor soldier in the boat who's towing the line across is going to be able to keep his weapon with him. You can see they've got that established. Boom, it looks like they've crossed the wood line and they are in the fight right here. All right, so what are we looking at? It looks like we've got a 3-man team here on the outside of the house, and it looks like on the inside is some sort of structure or building. Bear in mind, guys, again, YouTube, this has been checked already. This is a completely compliant with terms of service video. Now, okay, we're zooming it in. This is what it's depicting. It is depicting Russian forces who are occupying this house as a fighting position. Now, you notice this actually could be a really good position. They could have actually been assigned here to provide overwatch over, say, this critical juncture of the road, maybe to stop enemy forces from advancing. It could also be in here just to provide overwatch along this wood line. There's a number of reasons that you would want an elevated defensible position held. Of course, here's the perspective of these guys, again, it refers to them as National Guard elements, the National Guard SF guys on the ground. You can see they are approaching via the wall from a covered and concealed position. This is just common sense. What you want, the advantage of being close to this wall, of course, is that even if the enemy's in an elevated position above you, it's hard to look down if you're flush against that wall. Now you saw there that brief moment, right? These are small clips, and I think it's just to make sure that they only show things that are YouTube compliant. But I want you to watch this. See how this soldier, these are sort of details that make these guys, that show that these guys really have been in the fight a while, right? You notice how this soldier here is going to be pulling security. He's standing still and he's watching the potential fields of fire that the enemy has over him, while his battle buddy passes behind him, right? And then we cut to something else. You can see they are providing some suppressive fire, right? It says this is actually the Donbas battalion. So originally a separate brigade, but brought into the fold of the Ukrainian National Guard a little bit before the start of this conflict. So again, well, right. So what you're seeing here is that it looks like this house is known or believed to be free of civilians. And once you have that, once you are reasonably certain that there's not a possibility that you are going to inflict civilian casualties in an engagement, you're free to use some heavier weapons to try to dislodge the enemy. Of course, the enemy is also welcome to use heavier weapons against you. And so that's why you're seeing the Ukrainian team start to employ grenades and fully automatic weapons, doing some suppression. That's something that you would not do. You would try to be a lot more discerning if you believe there were a possibility of non-combatants in this house. Yep. So again, you notice they're really emphasizing that fire and maneuver. Again, just a sign of fire and maneuvers is the fundamental building block of really all dismounted combat operations and even mounted combat operations in a lot of cases. That simply means that someone is providing you either cover or covering fire, and while another element maneuvers, right? It keeps the enemy's head down, and if you do it right, it's continuous because your maneuver element is going to set in place, and then the previous covering or firing element becomes the maneuver element and maneuvers. So it ensures that you can move, but there's always someone watching your back. Again, it's something where in every military movie, they always talk about the camaraderie and your buddy has your back. And it's not symbolic. It's literally a fundamental part of tactics, is that you have to have faith that your battle buddy to your left and right, the units to your left and right, mean it when they say, hey, I'm set, I'm in a covering position, right? It's not like symbolic, right? It's not something, every bro dominated industry loves to pull that as a meme. People in Wall Street being like, you got my back, bro, I got your back, bro. No, you don't understand. You literally have to get people's backs. Okay, you can see here, you notice that it looks like they tossed a grenade into here. This could have been either a grenade to try to clear the room before they enter and begin to breach the compound, but more likely, I think it's probably them just doing a little bit of clearing by force. Right, so you notice when you want to clear out of a building, there's a couple of things you have to do, and it's not clear that this team has the manpower to really do it, but you want to establish an inner cordon, an outer cordon, and a search element, right? That inner cordon is going to keep any of your targets from leaving the building, right? The outer cordon is going to keep anyone from entering the area that you want to search or seize, and then your actual breach or search element are going to be the ones who actually enter the building and start clearing it. But as you can imagine, to do a building of this size, you would probably need a platoon plus to do it properly, right? 30 plus soldiers to do it. You can see here, it looks like they're maybe trying to breach, right? They are trying instead to, it looks like, clear the house in a more systematic fashion, right? By establishing a foothold, clearing it with grenades and automatic weapons fire, seizing a room, or just literally trying to just spam grenades and fire until they're reasonably certain the building has been secured. That's not a technique. And again, we call it, oh my gosh, it was like MET-TC, right? Mission, enemy, terrain, time, and civil considerations. And what that means is that there's the right way to do things according to the book, and then there's the reality, right? So in this case, the MET-TC, right? Mission, enemy, terrain, time, troops, and civil consideration, we look at troops. These guys don't have sufficient troops to run the correct solution on this, which is a cordon, inner cordon, outer cordon search element, right? They would have to literally have one soldier trying to search the building because of how small their team is. So they have to come up with different innovative ways, and they can reach into their tactical toolbook, tactical toolkit, so to speak, and look and say, okay, we can't run this like a classic cordon search, but maybe we can run it like a bounding overwatch, right? Where someone covers them, and that seems like how they solve this problem. There's a covering element and an attacking element. And that attacking element is going to be clearing rooms systematically from the bottom up, while other elements provide covering fire. Right, so you can see there's a lot of clearing. See how these guys, it looks like there was a breaching element, and again, you assume that somewhere out here was maybe a security element. So maybe they also went with a very, let me give you guys the right view, right? I'll give you that real quick. Right here, this clip here, you can see these guys exiting the building. That probably says that they did have a search element, and they probably just, instead of cordons, had a support by fire element. Yep. So now, look, it depicts one Russian soldier who realizes he probably might be one of the last people left, and he decides that he is going to dip on out of there. It's not even clear that he has a weapon, so he may be attempting to flee or become a non-combatant. Okay, and then the rest of the video, they are trying to break down where they think this was in Dubrovka, or Dubrovka. Let's see, it says it was right there. Yeah, so, okay, what would that mean? Obviously, I think my theory was at least a little correct, that this house was occupied to serve as an overwatch for these two avenues of approach. You notice that if you did occupy the house, you would actually get coverage over both of these. Of course, it looks like Ukrainian forces approached from the south, using this house as actually cover and concealment as they approached from the wood line. That would have kept them out of the field of fire of the Russian forces in the house. Then, of course, they got real close and engaged in a breach, or probably had a support by fire. I would suspect that perhaps they even took this house as their support by fire position, and what we watched was the breaching team engaging in their search. That would explain why, when the remaining Russian soldier fled, he fled out of what looks like the northeast corner of the house, right? Because that would have put him fleeing away from the support by fire position. At least that's how I would solve this problem, and think that's what they did based on sort of the data available. Yep, and they, of course, report, right, doing good open source intel. Oh, say they found something interesting. Oh yeah, look at that. That's pretty fun. A Predator patch. The morale patches in this war, sometimes a little weird, sometimes pretty cool. Wait. Let's see what it said. It said, welcome to Ukraine. And then something else. Whoa, spooky. Actually, I'm kind of into it. Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me. As always, of course, this video brought to you by Ground News, the news site that lets you see the bias in the news sources that you consume. The link is down below. Just check them out. They're free, but if you want to subscribe, you can support the small team trying to make the media more transparent. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Oh, and of course, thanks to all my Lieutenant tier patrons. If you want uncensored combat videos, of course, Patreon is the place. Link is down below. See you in the next one.